When I was looking through Emma Watson's filmography, I was surprised by one thing. Not the fact that half of it is Harry Potter, but the fact that out of the 19 films listed, all of them have made more than their budget, while only a few can be called box office failures. And those are just the indie films where making money is always a toss-up. Emma Watson might be the, or at least one of the, most financially successful and viable actresses alive. But she also hasn't done a movie in 5 years. Watson, like Harry Potter co-stars Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint, had an interesting Potter and post-Potter career. For a decade, all three were at the center of the most successful franchise of the early 21st century. She was 10 when she was cast in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and 21 by the time of Part 2 of the Deathly Hallows in 2011. By the time it had ended, Hermione Granger had been part of her life for more than half of her years. More akin to Daniel Radcliffe than Rupert Grint, at least in the beginning, Watson took a variety of roles after Potter ended. One role that flies under the radar was actually during her stint as Hermione. She voiced Princess P in 2008's animated film The Tale of Despero, which didn't really set the world on fire. She had a part in 2011's My Week with Marilyn, which did well with critics and, considering its small budget, was a moderate financial success. The same was the case for 2012's The Perks of Being a Wallflower and 2013's The Bling Ring. She had an amusing role in 2013's This Is the End and played an orphan in 2014's Noah. Noah was her first big-budget movie after Harry Potter had wrapped, and she slipped back into the vast production effortlessly. The movie did well with critics, though it's uncertain whether or not it made enough at the box office to recoup its budget. 2015's The Colony and Regression were much more middling, faring poorly with critics and at the box office. That said, Regression was something of a branching out for Watson, her first horror film. And for what it's worth, critics didn't have a problem with her or her co-stars, with Rotten Tomatoes consensus reading, quote, "Regression boasts a pair of eminently likable leads, neither of whom are able to dislodge the movie from the mire of psychological thriller mediocrity," unquote. Here we have the first gap in Watson's career, with no releases in 2016. Between 2001 and 2015, she only had 1 year where she had no movies released. 2003, between the release of Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban. Between 2004 and 2015, she was constantly working, either on Harry Potter or other films after Potter had ended. This was a conscious decision by Watson, who decided to step away from acting for a year in order to focus on her women's rights work. But 2017's Beauty and the Beast showed that Emma Watson plus Disney was a winning combination. Disney plunged as much as $255 million into the production, which was well worth it. The movie cleared $1.266 billion at the box office and was, at the time, the 10th highest grossing film at the box office. Currently, it's the second highest grossing of the Disney live-action remakes, behind 2019's The Lion King, which somehow made $1.663 billion. The role was personally important to Watson, who said, quote, "When I finished the film, it kind of felt like I had made that transition into being a woman on screen," end quote. Her other 2017 release, The Circle, was a lot smaller, faring poorly with critics, though it was a moderate box office success. She had no movies released in 2018 and returned to the screen as Meg March in Greta Gerwig's critically and commercially successful rendition of Little Women in 2019. So far, Little Women is also her most recent film role. Since 2019, or more like the end of 2018, which is when she wrapped up acting in Little Women, Watson hasn't appeared in another film and has no projects lined up. But this, again, is a conscious choice. In more recent years, she's focused her attention on activism and advocacy work, mostly for feminist causes. In 2020, she was appointed to the board of Kering, which owns fashion brands like Gucci, Balenciaga, Yves Saint Laurent, and Alexander McQueen. She wrote, starred in, and directed a short film for Prada's Paradox fragrance, which she's also the face of. Watson certainly stays busy, and she certainly hasn't ruled out returning to acting. She wasn't happy with the roles she was being offered, saying that they made her feel a bit caged. During an interview with the Financial Times, she was asked if she would return to acting. In her own words, quote, "Yes, absolutely. But I'm happy to sit and wait for the next right thing. I love what I do. It's finding a way to do it where I don't have to fracture myself into different faces and people, end quote. Emma Watson is a phenomenal actress, and I hope that she's able to find the right role sooner rather than later.